How to get hotel hell in Roblox doors in 2025. So you guys might remember a while back, I made a guide for the hard place when that first came out. And yeah, that guide is kind of bad. It was fine for day one, but there were just a lot of things we didn't know about modifiers yet. But now that the content update has been out for a few months, we got a pretty reliable loadout for hotel hell. You might want to switch up some modifiers depending on how well you deal with entities, but for the most part, I'd say this is a pretty good loadout. So I'll go through all the modifiers and talk about whether or not you should put them on. I wouldn't put on any random mods that changes, you know, every single attempt, so those aren't a good idea. We got the electrical work modifiers right here. You could probably put on electrical work or bad electrical work if you want, if you're able to deal with those. But I don't think any of these are really necessary. You can put them on if you want, but I don't think we need them to get hotel hell. But if you know how to listen for rush, electrical work is definitely not a bad option. If you're fine with some more dark rooms, you could also put bad electrical work as well, but I'm not going to put these on. El Goblino's Payday, this just gets rid of all the gold. This is a pretty easy 15% in my opinion. It denies you out of some items, but I don't really think it's that big of a concern. Now for the hard place guide, I originally put on out of stuff, but the problem with out of stuff is that you can't find any batteries or bandages, meaning that your light sources are pretty limited, and if you take any damage at any point, you can't heal it off, which is not a good idea in my opinion. I would instead recommend putting on baby hands. Now this sounds pretty difficult, you know, in theory, but there's actually a pretty easy trick to get around this mod. It says you can only hold one item, but if you actually buy all 4 things from the pre-run shop, you actually get 4 items. You know, instead of the normal one, you'll have 4 items, and there's actually a way to swap them out accordingly. You do need to be a little bit careful because there is a way to lose those inventory slots. But if you're careful, baby hands is a pretty free 10%, and you'll have 4 items. I'd say the problem with baby hands is you need to get everything from the pre-run shop, so that is a whopping 300 knobs per attempt. So if that's a little too expensive for you, you might want to downgrade to small hands. This gives you 3 items at a time, so you can pick up some items, you know, during your run. However, I'd say for the hotel in particular, if you're gonna go with small hands, you're just better off with wear and tear. To my knowledge, wear and tear is kind of broken in the hotel. Any sort of items you can find in the hotel, like the lighter and the flashlight, their battery life is actually not cut in half. It only works in the mines for some reason, you know, with the bulk light and stuff. But anyway, yeah, I would go with baby hands if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, I'd say in the hotel, you're probably better off with wear and tear. Gone fishing and soundproofing are pretty good options here. This just makes it so that guiding light doesn't show up in your runs, which is not a big deal in my opinion. It can make the figure boss fight in the sea chase a little bit more tricky, but you'll get used to it. Wet floor, I've talked about this mod on my channel a lot. It has gone through a lot of changes. It has gone from literally impossible to literally free, and recently they finally fixed it and balanced it. So wet floor, it changes up your movement a little bit. This is not a bad modifier for you to put on if you can get used to the new movement. It might take a little bit of practice, but I think you'll get there eventually. The sea chase is not too bad with wet floor on. I'm going to keep this off just for the people who aren't used to wet floor, but this is a good option if you want another 10%. Bad ventilation, this makes it way harder to see. Don't put this on. Delted, this is a pretty free 25%. You can get bad RNG with Delted, but it's not too bad in my opinion. I also recommend Key X4. This makes your run a little bit more tedious, but it's really not that bad. You just got to find keys in every room. Most of the time they just appear right in front of the door or on like the only table that's available. So in a lot of rooms, it's really not that hard to find the key. If you're playing solo, I think Key X4 is totally fine. If you think it's really annoying to find a key in every single room, you could put on locked and loaded. I don't think that's too bad either. We're gonna skip these mods. This one here is a little RNG based. Jamming is really difficult to deal with. Damage mods we don't want. Speed mods we don't want. More entities spawning, we probably don't want that. We're gonna move on to the rush mods. I would definitely recommend rush around. This just makes it so that rush has a chance to appear in front of you rather than behind you, kind of like in the mines. This is really not that hard to deal with. If you're confident with dealing with rush, you can also put on rush hour. This is not a bad choice. I would not put on these 2 mods. This makes rush way more difficult to deal with. I'm running here is actually not too terrible in the hotel, but I still wouldn't recommend it. We're gonna put on battle of wits. This is a pretty free 15% because there's actually a pretty easy trick to deal with dupe in the hotel. There's actually a little trick that you can use, so definitely put this on. For Screech mods, I just like to put on Think Fast. I think, you know, it's a good middle ground. Think Faster, you really don't have a lot of time to react. I would just put on Think Fast. You have Itchy, you can put this on if you want, but because we have Key X4, I'm gonna say not to do that. Also, if you're desperate for healing and you need a loot for healing, Itchy could end up being a problem. I'm I'm gonna avoid putting this on for the time being. Moving on to the eyes mods. We're gonna want to put on every angle. This just makes it so that eyes teleports around the room like he does in the mines. Not too bad to deal with. Now, you do have nosy, but nosy makes eyes spawn very often. I think in pretty much every single room after door 5. If you're gonna put on any other mods for eyes, I would probably put on always watching, because with nosy, eyes spawns in pretty much every room anyway. You might as well put on always watching, but I'm gonna put the eyes mods off. I feel like eyes in every single room is kind of demanding. It can run too. This is free if you know how to deal with the seek chase. Come back here is also not too bad either. Ambush is a menace, so we're just gonna ignore his mods. For hide, I would not recommend Rent's Do anymore. Rent's Do is actually pretty demanding. New roommate is pretty good. This makes us that hide camps in the previous spot like he does in the mines. I feel like new roommate is pretty easy to forget about though, so that is something to keep in mind. I am going to put on new roommate. Just, you know, be careful when ambush spawns, right? You gotta have 2 hiding spots. Keep that in mind. Snare mods, I mean, you could put one of these on if you want. I would not recommend I Love Pancakes, but you can put these on if you know how to deal with snare. But I don't know, snare in the hotel can be a little bit buggy sometimes. Dread mods, I mean, the rooms of the hotel are pretty short, so you probably could get away with run from it. I would not put on Destiny Still Arrives. That makes it so that you only have like a few seconds in the end game to get through a room. I'm gonna say no to Dread though, because, you know, we also have Gone Fishing, Soundproofing, and Key X4, which could make it a little bit hard to find a key. And we're getting like 25% from these 3 mods. I think that's way more worth it than a Dread mod. Do not put on any Giggle modifiers. You will regret it, because Giggle will spawn in literally every single room. It will be miserable. Don't do it. Gloom Bat mods, you can definitely put these on if you want. I'm gonna keep Gloom Bat mods off, but it's up to you. Okay, the rooms entities. There's a lot to say with these. Obviously, a lot of people nowadays are still not super confident with A90. They still kind of struggle with it. But from my experience, stop right there. It has a chance to be bugged. Like sometimes I'll put on stop right there and A90 will literally just never attack and it's a free 15%. I don't know what causes it. I think it's just random. I don't know. See, I would put on stop right there, and if you just play with this mod enough, one of 2 things will happen, right? Outcome number 1, A90 will just never spawn and you'll get a free 15%. Outcome number 2, you'll just eventually get used to A90. So I don't know. I would put this on. I think it's a good idea. Blitz O, if you're playing solo, this is a pretty free 5%, right? He literally just behaves the same as Rush. Blitz only rebounds if you put on haste, and yeah, don't put on haste. That's a bad idea. You could put on Lookman, but I feel like Lookman can really catch you off guard and do a lot of damage. I would put on Vacuum Sealed. This one's pretty easy if you just avoid the subrooms as much as you can, right? If you need to go in a subroom to find a key, just be careful. You know, take some steps back. Don't run straight into a subroom. Anyway, yeah, this is my loadout. You can definitely change it if you want. It definitely depends on your own skill level. You could definitely, you know, you could put on Rush Hour. You could probably put on Always Watching. That's 20% right there. You could turn off New Roommate and put on like Itchy or something. It's really up to you at the end of the day. But I think this really shouldn't change your run all that much. There's just a couple things you gotta look out for, but for the most part, a lot of these modifiers are just free. Let's go ahead and hop into it, and I'll show you guys what a run looks like. Now, again, if you have baby hands, you're gonna want to buy all of these because, you know, that's your inventory slots, right? You're basically buying your inventory slots, and there is a way to swap your items out for new ones, and I will show you guys how to do that when we get there. But we are just going to go ahead and get started with the run right here. And like I said, you know, the key is right here. Key X4 is really not that bad. It sounds annoying in theory, and, you know, in a room like this, it is kind of annoying, but it is what it is, right? It slows your run down a little bit, but there's really not much extra challenge to it. We got a fire damp room. Just don't use your lighter. That's basically it, right? That's all you gotta do. I mean, I guess finding a key in a fire damp room can be a little bit tricky, but you can just back out of the room if needed. Like I said, if it's that big of a problem, you can just downgrade to locked and loaded. Oh, there's A90. Unfortunately, he is not bugged. Anyway, this is a dupe room here. Like I said, there's a way to cheese dupe. It's really not that bad. Now, I think we're on door 6, but I'm gonna show you guys what a dupe room looks like here. So this is a dupe room. and you can literally just crouch and sort of just flip your camera through the room here, and you can see the dupe room, right? You can see this, you know, brown wall. You can see this white line. This is a dupe room. Now, I believe we're on door 6 here, and we can just, you know, click through the camera, and boom, you can see it's kind of flashing. You can see there's clearly another room on the other side here, so, you know, we can use the key here. Boom, not a dupe room, and that's kind of how you cheese dupes. So, yeah, pretty free 15% if you know that trick. And there's Blitz, not a big deal. We can hide from him in plain sight right here, actually. And yeah, you can see he just passes by just like Rush. Not a big difference at all, right? Another way to avoid dupe is to listen to rain. You can hear rain on the other side of this room. That means, you know, it's safe from dupe. The key is at this door, so pretty safe to say if the key is spawning near this door, it's probably the right door. Eyes can also point you towards the correct door. It's a little bit trickier with every angle on, but for the most part, he'll try to be closer to the correct door. So eyes can sort of lead you in the right direction as well. And again, if you're struggling with the fire damp, just step out for a little bit and AFK. You're gonna want to AFK while you're catching your breath because you'll see that actually slows down the dread timer a little bit. And you can see that there's not a lot happening, right? We got one blitz spawn. It was very easy to deal with. And there's another blitz spawn. He basically replaces Rush at this point, right? Like, it is what it is. And from my experience, you will never, ever, ever see him rebound unless you have haste. And yeah, you're gonna die with haste no matter what. No, make haste, it's kind of balanced, but it's still one of the hardest mods in the game. You definitely don't want that if you just want this badge. And guys, like I said in my previous guide with the hard place, if you're doing all this and you are still struggling to get Hotel Hell, go ahead and tune into my live streams, because very often we'll do live streams carrying people to get the badge. If you do this with friends and you die, it does not matter. As long as one person makes it to the end, everyone gets the badge as long as they spectate. So yeah, tune into my live streams if you are still struggling to get Hotel Hell, because literally all you need to do is be in one of those runs, and even if you die, you just spectate. Somebody, you know, one of the 50 people get to the end, everybody gets the badge. Anyway, I honestly might lockpick for this room because this room is kind of a pain in the butt. You do want to be a little bit careful with your resources because, like I said, if you end up dropping one of these items, you actually lose that inventory slot altogether. So if I use this lockpick right now, I'll only have 3 inventory slots. Do what you will with that information, you know? But there is a way to swap out items for new ones. We haven't really found any items yet. Okay, this is the bad RNG I was talking about. You don't want a fire damp here. This could be a problem. Now, there is a smoothie in here that I would like, so I'm gonna try to explain how to swap items. Basically, just hold out the item you want to get rid of and then try to pick up the new item. It'll just automatically swap. So let me see if I can actually find the smoothie here. Here's the key, and yep, there's a smoothie, so I'm gonna hold down my lighter. Boom. I swapped out the lighter for the smoothie right here. And this smoothie is very useful for the end boss against Figure. And hopefully we do not suffocate. We should be fine. There we go. We're out of it. No big deal. But you can see there is a bit of RNG there, unfortunately. But yeah, hopefully if you do get a basement maze as a fire damp, it's not, you know, too difficult to find the lever. Hopefully it's not too deep in there. Use your vitamins if you need to. You know, those vitamins will give you a speed boost. That'll definitely help you out a bit. Oh, and also we're in the sea chase. Like I said, if you know how to deal with the sea chase, it's free. Seek runs a bit faster. Not a big deal, man. And here's our first rush encounter of the run. It's always just been Blitz. We got Sally. You know, I'm just gonna take the force damage. I don't want to give up any items. I'm just gonna avoid Sally if I can. I couldn't. Unfortunate. What can you do? With baby hands, you really don't want to get Sally, but sometimes it just happens. So now I'm pretty low on health. Got to be a little bit careful here. Welcome to the Figure boss fight. This should be mostly the same. The only difference is that Figure is a bit faster, and Guiding Light is not going to show you where the books are. Not a big deal if you don't have any dread mods, which we don't, so awesome. Figure is a little bit faster, but he behaves the same as always. If you know how to deal with Figure, it's really not that big of a deal if he moves slightly faster, right? Just remember that Figure does move faster with every book you collect, so keep that in mind. Boom, we got all 8 books. We're gonna put in the code. We're out of here. I've seen this door not open for a lot of people, so just remember to back away a little bit after you open the door. That might help a bit. And then, there we go. It opened just fine. Because Figure does immediately chase you once that door is open, so you got to be careful there. Anyway, not much else to say from here. Just gonna keep going on. Again, try to hold on to your smoothie if you can. You know, obviously, if you need to heal, then heal. But if you can hold on to your smoothie, try to do that, because the smoothie will be very helpful for the late game. Welcome to Jeff's shop. You can't buy anything, you're broke. Made it to the infirmary, not too much to say, but you can look around here for some healing or some batteries maybe. Just be careful of vacuum sealed, because yep, sure enough, there's a lot of sub rooms here. It's very easy to get sucked in. And here's Holt. Not too different, just if you have always watching, eyes will appear here, so be a little bit careful. Sea chase number 2, if you know what to deal with it, absolutely free. And here is the obligatory ambush spawn. Just if you have new roommate, don't forget, because this is the part where you might forget that you have new roommate. Swap the hiding spots if you need to. It's a good habit to get into just in general, if you can. All right, and here we are at the greenhouse, which is really not all that different from normal doors. Key X4 does not apply in the greenhouse, so you don't need to look for any more keys. Really, the only difference is the fire damp rooms right here, which, again, not that big of a deal. We have a 90 here, and the rest of it is pretty much the same. Dupe is pretty easy to find in the greenhouse. The correct door will always have a little bit of a glow to it, whereas, you know, the dupe rooms are completely dark, so avoid those. Rush can spawn in front. We've barely seen Rush because, you know, it's just been Blitz most of the time, but you got that to worry about. But, you know, just play slowly, listen to Rush, avoid the snares. It's business as always, really. And there we go. Door 100 made it to the figure end boss. This can be a little nerve-wracking, but if you still got items with you, this really should not be that bad. I mean, we're at the end of the game, so might as well use our items, right? So if we got a lockpick here, we can go ahead and open that, so we don't got to worry about the key. There we go. And if you still got the smoothie on you, we can go ahead and take this down to the rift, and that will make this very easy, because that will just show where figure is as well as all the fuses. I like to run this way over to the corner so that figure doesn't hear me when I leave the closet eventually. All right, figure sounds far away. I'm gonna leave. He heard me. That's fine. I'm just gonna try to avoid him. There we go. He's freaking out over there. Not a big deal. And yeah, now I'm gonna take this smoothie down to the rift because, I mean, none of my modifiers disable the rift, so we can use that to upgrade this smoothie to the moonlight float. And there we go. Now we know where all the fuses are. And fun fact, you can actually just see a key out there in the map because of key X4. The game needed to spawn a key for door 101. Yeah, just ignore that key down there. You don't need it. You don't need to get it. It's impossible to get, so don't try to get it. And yeah, now we can use our vitamins here to move around pretty quickly and avoid figure as needed. And we're just gonna, you know, grab all these fuses. Figure's walking in here. That's totally fine. Just avoid him. All right, boom. Got all the fuses. Let's use the last of the vitamin. Let's just get out of here. We're pretty much done here, right? If you have any snare mods, I would be careful about this final figure chase because, I mean, the figure chase is pretty easy, but if a snare catches you off guard, that could be a problem. So, I mean, I don't have any snare mods on. If you do, I would look around here, make sure there's no snares. If there are snares, be ready for them, take note of them. To be fair, this final figure chase is pretty buggy. A lot of the times he just falls out of the map. So you might be fine if you step on a snare, but not something you want to chance, you know? This figure, yep, there he goes. Goodbye, figure. You know, I probably should warn people about this. So yeah, when the fire is active here and you finish the electrical puzzle, you can kind of just clip through this wall. So don't clip through this wall, because if you do, you're not going to make it to the elevator. So yeah, don't do that. All right, there, done. Easy. Did it first try. Again, here is the loadout I am using. You are free to change this as needed, depending on your play style. Do what you will. And you might need a bit of gourd RNG for Delted, but I mean, I think having terrible RNG to the point where it's unwinnable is pretty rare, right? And yeah, there it is. That's how it's done. After all this, if you still need help, just hit that subscribe button. We do live streams carrying people to hotel hell. We can absolutely do it for you. All right, cool. Bye-bye.